So, as we begin, I don't know if you know this, but we are 39 days away from Christmas. 39 days. Where did October and November go, right? We're only 39 days from Christmas, from it all happening, all of it being done, all of that stuff. And so, what that means is I have 39 opportunities now to convince Carlin to watch Christmas Vacation with me. I get 39 days to convince her. See, I love that movie. It is so hilarious, right? You feel so bad for Clark, and you just want things to get better for him, and she hates the movie because it's so much negative stuff for so long. And so the logic would be, all right, instead of trying to convince Carlin, I've now got an 8-year-old mini-me that maybe, but as she just said, not yet. Because, see, I grew up watching the TBS or TNT version of Christmas Vacation. And there's a lot of dubbing over some words. There's a lot of things that are deleted from it. And then, now that we don't have cable and you have streaming services and you watch the real stuff, you realize, oh, there's a lot more language. There's a lot more innuendo. There's a lot more crude joking in this. I don't think Cooper's ready to watch this yet. Right? Because as parents, we know that he's going to hear it. He goes to public school, but even if he was at private school, and even if Carlin was homeschooling him, he'd hear a lot of profanity probably. But we understand he's going to learn all the words, right? He's going to learn them all eventually. But it doesn't mean that we're going to introduce them to him. It doesn't mean that we're going to bring them to him and say, this is what we want you to hear. We've all been in that situation where you start watching something and then you go, ooh, I don't think this is appropriate for this setting. Right? You start watching in mixed company, and whether that's with your parents or with your children or with your grandchildren or with somebody down the street, and you go, ooh, I really wish I wouldn't have suggested that. I don't know if I can laugh at that, right? Because we forget at times all of the stuff that we've gotten accustomed to. We forget the language that we've grown callous to, the profanity that we just accept, the crude joking and the foolishness that we don't think much of until we are then in a mixed company setting. And we go, oh, I don't know if that's really what I want us to watch. Now, we typically, before we let him watch a movie, Carlin will look it up on Focus on the Family and say, all right, what's in this movie? And do we want him to be introduced to that? See, because content matters. And a lot of times what we look at is we look for the language. And see, what we're going to look at today is this. Our words matter a lot. See, James last week at the end of chapter 2, he taught us that faith without works is dead. But here's the argument I want to make today. Our words are works. How we use our words are works. And they reveal what's going on within us, but they also expose what we think and what we believe. See, the words we use are not just simply words, they are actually our works. And if faith without works is dead, then we better take a look at our words if they are works. So, James chapter 3, we're going to read from verses 1 through 12 today, and that's going to be the passage that we study. If you have your Bibles, feel free to read along. It'll be on the screens with you as well. Kendall's doing a phenomenal job today on the screens, leading us in worship from the screen. So thank you, Kendall. Way to go. So, chapter 3, verse 1, it says this, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness." I'm going to pause and let me address this verse really quickly. It's kind of an aside. What James is saying to an early church where people are trying to take leadership positions, he is saying, don't vie for those places of status if you don't have the morality to support it. He's saying, don't try to go and get these higher places where everybody looks to you and you teach everybody, because you need to remember that with greater responsibility comes greater scrutiny. And now he's going to, in verse 2, he's going to teach on a whole of everybody, because teachers use their words, and now he's bringing us all in. Verse 2 for the rest of the chapter, or for the rest of through 12. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. See, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we can guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, and yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. Verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But yet, no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. 9 and 10 are kind of the crux verses. With our tongue, we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse. We curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, this ought not be so. Verse 11, does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. This is the word of the Lord. Verse 2, James says, and I love this, we all stumble. James doesn't say, you folks stumble. He doesn't say, y'all are bad with your words. He says, we all stumble in what we say. James is not saying, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, or holier than you. He's saying we all struggle to use our words in a way that is honoring to God. We all do this. We all gossip. We all slander. We all make crude jokes. We all speak of foolishness. We all insult. We all mock. This is all of us. But his point today is that our words matter. It's not okay that we all do this. I heard in kindergarten, sticks and stones may break my bones, but what? We can say that all day long, but is it true? No. We can say sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. See, what James is going to teach us is that words have great power, that they are weapons full of deadly poison, and that we have to learn to bridle the tongue. We have to learn to tame the tongue. We have to learn to control what is coming out of us, because, as he teaches in verses 3 through 5, though the tongue is a small member, it boasts mighty things. He gives us 3 examples. He says we can move a 1,000-pound horse with a bit in its mouth. We can direct a horse with a bit in its mouth. We can guide a ship, verse 4, even in very strong winds. We can still guide and direct a ship with a small rudder on the bottom. And finally, a whole forest can be destroyed with a small spark. The tongue boasts great power. It's a dangerous thing. What James is teaching us in the first 2 examples is that the tongue has great power to control the body, to direct the body, to lead the body. And in the final example of the fire, it has the power to destroy the body. About 30 years ago now, a little less than 30 years ago, Carlin heard this as a child growing up. You talk so much that no boy is ever going to like you. And then she found a boy that talks way more than she does. He's a yapper, as they say. 30 years ago. And I know that. I didn't know her. That was 10 years before I had even met her, and yet that phrase has been brought up multiple times in the last 19 years that I have known Carlin because those words stung. 13 days ago, my hair was getting a little long and curling up on the corners, and I don't like that. And so I asked Carlin, I said, will you cut my hair, please? It was about 5 o'clock, and so the sun was going down. We do it in the front yard, because that's where you do things like that. Our neighbors are in the front yard. There's women, there's kids. I'm throwing the ball with a 3-year-old. Carlin's cutting my hair in the shadows of the tree light. It's very difficult and challenging. We get inside after she's cut it. I get out of the shower, and we're looking at it in the mirror, and she says, I'm sorry I jacked up your hair. For the last 13 days, every single time I look in the mirror, do you know what I see? A jacked up head and a bad haircut. No. We hear those words, right? Words have power. You are holding on to words that somebody spoke of you or to you that are still damaging to you. Maybe it's the words a parent said or didn't say. Maybe it's somebody that you were dating and a comment that they made either to you or behind your back. Maybe it's something that a boss said questioning your competency or your ability. And you hold on to those words because those words are still reigning over you. And the power to destroy is within those small words. Words that they said that they can't even remember they said still reign over you and terrorize you. And now we live in a digital age where we don't even get to see people's faces and we just look for how many emojis or exclamation points they put in the words they write to us, right? To see if they're really happy with us. That's why Ron, I'll say the nicest text message to Ron, and now it's a running joke. You know what Ron responds? I will say, hey Ron, thank you so much for serving our church in so many ways, and just the friendship that you have given me over the last 3.5 years. You are such a support for me. And you know what Ron responds? Okay, period. They sting. Our words have such power. Words have gotten people canceled in our culture like that. Words have started rumors that have ruined people's lives, ruined marriages, and ruined careers. Words carry such great weight. I said this at the beginning of this series, and I'm going to say it again. I could not only lose my job in the next 5 seconds, I could lose my career in the next 5 seconds based on a few words that I said if I strung them together correctly. Words have great power, but do we think of them as powerful? Words carry great weight, but do you think of them as weighty? Do you just say words every day? Flippantly just throwing out the first thing that comes to your mind? Or do you process and consider, how can I use my words, these weighty things, for good? Do we respect the power of the words that we speak every single day? This is the point James is calling us to consider. Not only can words be bad, but I was reminded from a lunch I had not too long ago with a man that words can be good and we don't need to withhold them. I was eating lunch and This friend of mine is a senior citizen. He can get the discount wherever he goes. And we were sitting at lunch, and I think I got off the phone call with Carlin, and I said, I love you, and hung up the phone. And he maybe had a smirk or something, and I said, how often do you tell your wife of 45 plus years that you love her? And he said, he just started laughing. He said, she knows I love her. I said, no. I said, how often do you tell your wife that you love her? I don't. So then I asked a question. I said, do you think your wife would like to hear I love you? He said, well, it would feel so awkward to say that. That didn't answer my question at all. I said, do you think your wife would like to hear I love you coming out of your mouth? He said, well, it would just feel so weird and she would probably laugh. I said, I'm not asking that. I said, do you think she would like it? We all understand deeply that we desire to be loved and we want to hear that. Even if we don't believe it, we want to hear it. And so here's the situation. We need to get to the place where we not only try to stop saying the bad words, but that we start saying the grace-filled words that others around us are built up because of our words as well. We need to start using our words for good rather than just stop abusing the words that we say. So verse 6, James gets into it. The tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. It's set among our members, staining or polluting or defiling the whole body. We were watching a show not too long ago, and in the show was a priest. And the priest had the foulest mouth of everybody in the show. And it was really frustrating watching this person that is supposed to be representative of a follower of God, and he knew how to use profanity as a verb, an adverb, an adjective, a noun. He had it all figured out, right? He knew how to string it all together, and it was so frustrating to watch because here this person is supposed to be representative of God, and yet their words are undoing their witness. You wouldn't want me to be the most foul-mouthed person in this church. You would be very disappointed. If I was just throwing out profanity, you would say, I need to find another church. This is not a place for me because I cannot sit under the teaching of somebody who speaks in that way. Why are you exempt from it? Why is it not okay for me, but it's okay for you? Your words will quickly undo your witness if we do not learn to tame our tongue. If we give no thought to what we are saying, then we're giving no thought to how we are living for Christ every single day. Are your words undoing your witness? James says in chapter 1, verse 26, it's cool. Chapter 1, he kind of sets up everything he's going to talk about the rest of the book. Chapter 1, verse 26, if anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. That's not me telling you that. That's the Bible. That's why James says in chapter 1, verse 19, be slow to speak and quick to listen. Don't just run off saying every word that comes into your mind. No. We must be wise with how we use our words. Micaiah started working here about 8 weeks ago, I guess, somewhere around there. And in our first meeting, she came in and I wanted to teach her just one, to share the job description, but two, to kind of set the culture of what we believe around here. I've worked on multiple staffs in churches. I've worked in a bunch of different contexts, different states, and here's one thing that I have watched and observed, sadly, is that the people who are leading the churches, oftentimes by the way they speak of the people that they lead, they do not show that they love them. So many places I have been, I have watched those who are leading the church not love the church people. And so when I sat Micaiah down, one of the few things that I went through very quickly is I said this: we do not speak negatively of our people. We don't speak poorly of our people. There are things that you do that frustrate me. And there are things that I do that frustrate you. We're good on that. I get it. We're all human. But I'm not going to start speaking that out. There are things that has to be addressed every once in a while. That's fine. But we're not going to be a place that speaks poorly of our people. That's not the culture that we have. We love our congregation. And we love the people in it. And yes, people can be difficult and people can be messy. But this is who we are. And this is different than any staff culture I've been a part of, but that's what we're committed to. Because that's what we are called to do, to love one another. And there is freedom within our staff, if we venture down that road, to call each other out. Because that's not okay. So let's keep going. We got to finish this. So verses 7 and 8, he talks about taming the tongue. Every beast, every bird, every reptile, every sea creature can be tamed. Verse 8, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. What James is saying is we can have a circus where we can make lions and monkeys do tricks. We can make birds speak, and we can make dangerous cobras rise and do all this with our flute, and yet we cannot control our own mouth. That's the point he's making. And he says, no human being can do this. And so now you should be asking the most logical question. Jordan, you're telling us we should watch what we say, and now the Bible says we can't do this. Notice the language there, no human being. Thanks be to God that you're not trying to do this alone. But if you are a believer that is called to live with a tongue that is tamed, then you have help from the Holy Spirit that is dwelling within all believers, who is the advocate, the helper. He is the God in you, leading you towards righteousness, and that he is changing what is coming out of your mouth, convicting you and challenging you on the things that you want to say. I have some really funny jokes that I don't get to share because I am actively trying to tame my tongue. I've got some really frustrating exclamations that I want to let out, but I don't because I'm actively trying to tame my tongue. So should we even try this? Yes, because our speech is oftentimes a marker of our godliness. Our speech, the words we use and how we speak, is oftentimes a marker of our godliness. Our words are often a barometer of our spiritual life. When I get into more crude joking and crass things, I know that I'm not in a good place with God. I can tell my words give away where I'm at in my own spiritual life. So he says in verses 9 through 12, here's the crux. With it, our mouth, we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse the people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not be so. James is bringing up that idea of the double-minded man who, Mr. Facing Both Ways, the hypocrite who talks one way here and one way there. How many times I've heard this, oh, I can't say that in church. Well, where is it appropriate to say? Oh, I can't say that around the pastor. Well, who is it appropriate to tell? Do we need to be in the parking lot? Is that far away enough? Do we need to be in your home? Do we need to be like a mile radius away? You know, is there just like you can't get close enough kind of thing? No. Why are we stepping into those things? Brothers, these things ought not be so. To bless God, to praise the Creator Almighty for all that He has done, and then to curse those that are made in His likeness, made in His image, the one that Christ died for. And to curse is not just to insult, it's to desire God to damn them to hell. And you go, well, I would never do that. Maybe not that extreme. But in this moment, In this hour, you have been praising God, and in the next hour, you are going to be tempted to judge what somebody was wearing, what somebody said, or what somebody did. Can you believe they let that happen? Can you believe they were wearing that? Can you believe they said this? These things ought not be so. This is not how it should happen, is the literal Greek there. We've gotten really good at code switching, at having Jesus talk while we're around Jesus people and worldly talk while we're around worldly things. We shouldn't be living in two different ways. Jesus says this in Luke chapter 6, verse 45. I think Kendall's going to be able to throw it on the screen. Yeah, I'm going to read from there. It says, "The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasure produces evil." Now I want you to get that last line. "For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks." Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What does that mean? That your mouth isn't just coming up with words to say. You can't just say, "I don't know where that came from." I know exactly where that came from, deep inside of you. So when you go, "Oh, my words just keep throwing out slander," guess what? Slander's in your heart. When your words are filled with arrogance, guess what's in your heart? Arrogance. When you're insulting, when you're being just rude or mean, it's because that's what you're feeling. Your mouth only spews what is in your heart. The mouth speaks out of an abundance of the heart. I know exactly where those words came from. Your feelings deep inside. There is no excuse. We cannot justify it or push it away. It ought not be so. He ends with three comparisons. He says, can a freshwater spring produce salt water? Can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine produce figs? Can a salt pond yield fresh water? He's just saying it doesn't make sense to live in both ways. It doesn't make sense to be what you're not. You're not going to produce what you're not. So if you're an evil person, you're not just going to start doing good things. And if you're a good person, you shouldn't just have evil things coming out of you. We need to take control of our tongues. And so here is how I'm going to wrap it up today. Last week we talked about works reveal our faith. Works reveal our faith. But here's what we need to understand for today. Words reveal our heart. While works reveal our faith, words reveal our heart. And our words have power to harm or to heal, to build up or to bruise. Our words have power. And for so long, we have focused on what can I say? But the question isn't what can I say? I remember my grandfather asked me, why is that a bad word? Why is that a profanity? Why is that a cuss word? It doesn't really matter. It's not a question of how much we can expand our vocabulary. It's not what can I say, it's what should I say. That matters. It's not about the freedom to choose words. It's about the wisdom of the words that we choose. Does that make sense? It's not about the freedom for all the different words we can use. It's about the wisdom for the words that we do choose to use. Because words have power and they are weighty, but are we treating them as weighty? So our final verse today is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, and it says this, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth." So he addresses, don't do the bad stuff. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such that is pleasing, or only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. It's not just about avoiding sin with our words. It's not about trying to get profanities out of our daily language. It's about using our daily language for good, to give grace to those who hear. How are you using your words every day? I'm writing about this in the devotion. I think it comes out on Wednesday of this week. But But I firmly believe that you should be the most encouraging person in your family. I honestly believe that you should be the most encouraging person at your workplace, on your street, and in any other environment in which you live regularly. You should be the most encouraging person because you have been changed by Christ. And it should lead you to speaking differently. Some of you will say, I'm not an encouraging person naturally. Okay, I wasn't a person that combated sin naturally, but Christ has been making a change in my life. I think of myself as a pretty encouraging person. I'm looking around the room, I think just about every single person in this room I have specifically encouraged in some way, whether it was a small thing like wardrobe or something that they've baked or cooked or a haircut, or maybe a big thing like something they shared in a group with us or a comment that they have made. I really do view myself as an encourager, but that's not a personality type that only a few of us get. Some of us are going to be better at it than others, but all of us are called to be encouragers. To use our words for building up, giving grace to those who hear. So here's my two requests as we move to the conclusion. Here's what I want you to do during our prayer time. Micaiah, when you guys come up, I want you to just give us some space just to kind of sit and pray for a few moments. But here's the two things I want you to do. The first is I want you to confess the ways that you have failed to use your words for good. I want you to confess the way that you have failed to use your words for good. The insults, the mocking, the slander, the foolishness that you've used. We can freely confess because we know the one that we confess to loves us and desires to forgive us. This is the gospel message. That we all stumble in our words in many ways, and yet we have one who forgives us of it. So the first thing I want you to do is to confess. The second thing I want you to do is this, to commit this week to using your words for good. And just like my friend who said, well, it will feel awkward if I tell her I love you. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about that other person on the other end that gets to hear something because you don't know what they need to hear today. Just like you've had words that if there's a guy in here and somebody's ever complimented you on a shirt, you've like worn that shirt all the time because you think that's your best looking shirt you own, right? Because some girl liked it. Can you be that voice of encouragement? Because we all need encouragement. Our words on their own are going to lead to destruction. But when God is working in us, He changes the words that come out of us. And so will you commit to leaning into Him, being quick to listen and slow to speak, bridling your tongue instead of putting that in a category that God doesn't get to touch? And will you try to honor God in how you speak this week? Let me pray. God, bring conviction on us and bring change.